Hello and welcome to Workforce Wisdom. I'm your host, Christy Bray, Chief Customer Officer at PracticeLink. This podcast examines the latest trends in healthcare recruitment, showcasing innovative strategies, success stories, and fresh perspectives that are shaping today's healthcare workforce. Each episode leads to in-depth, thoughtful discussions with recognized industry leaders, exploring the challenges and opportunities in healthcare recruitment and beyond. Whether you're an experienced recruitment professional or just beginning your journey, Workforce Wisdom aims to help you discover how experts are reshaping the industry, leveraging innovation, and prioritizing well-being along the way. Today's episode, Finding Balance and Building Connection with Liz Huesman. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, Christy.
Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited for this episode for many reasons, and I think the listeners will hear that as we go along. But, really, I love the title of this and that balance and that connection. And I hope the listeners listen to the whole thing because I think that's what we're going to really touch on and provide some fun things for folks today.
Great. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. Well, okay, let's start with your story. So tell me how you got involved in healthcare recruitment and what drew you to this field.
Sure. So I started physician recruiting as a volunteer role, actually, with the American Heart Association, meaning as a corporate events director. And when I first started with the American Heart Association, I was in charge of corporate events, so heart walks, heart galas. And as part of that, my role was to recruit volunteers that were either physician leaders or administrators for different healthcare organizations to help us execute those events so that those fundraisers would be a very successful endeavor. So I came into it out of necessity because I was connected to that mission of the American Heart Association and just knew that I needed to do whatever it took because our mission was to save lives from heart disease and stroke. So yeah. That's where it started. And I met a lot of really great people along the way as part of that journey. As my career evolved and I became regional vice president for the American Heart Association, I was in charge of the fundraisers that were putting on these events in Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And I was able to interact with so many wonderful healthcare organizations, but I always had some favorites to work with, just ones that were really successful. I found really passionate physicians working at those places and great administration. And over time, as you cultivate those relationships, they go from volunteers to colleagues to friends. And I was fortunate enough that one of the friends that I came away with joined our organization at the Heart Association. Her brother had had a stroke, and the American Heart Association is the American Stroke Association. And so her connection to our mission became just more passionate. She left her organization and came to us. And so over a period of time, she actually went back into a physician recruiting role at what was then called Essentia Health. And that's how I had come to know her. She had been one of my Heart Walk volunteers, communication volunteer. And I went to have lunch with her after she started her new role, after she'd been there a couple months, and just wanted to get her engagement in putting on some more of our activities in that Fargo area. And at that time, I just asked her, how is your new role? Are you liking it? Tell me about the physician recruiting world. And so as she started to kind of talk about what it is that she did, which was super interesting to me, I said, well, what is your challenges that you have? And she had shared that she had just lost her other partner, physician recruiter in the department. And she just had one of those moments where she said, oh, I think you would be wonderful in this role. And at that point, she texted who my manager is now that you just spoke to not that long ago, Chris Olson. And long story short, that was 15 years ago. And so I found it really easy to slide into this type of physician recruiting, whereas before I was asking for physicians to volunteer their time, their talent, and their monetary donations as well as part of our organizations. It became really easy to slide in over on the employment side and really listen to physicians and see what kind of practice that they were looking for and what kind of organization they wanted to work for. And I already believed in Liz Health as a great organization. So that's a kind of a long story, but that's how I ended up here 15 years ago and still just loving every minute of it.
Yeah. I mean, none of us have a straight path. Nobody went to recruiter school. I know several guests I've had or colleagues that I've worked with. I got a lot of journalist people that are recruiters and maybe some marketers, sales, but it's not a direct path into what we do. So your role today with Essentia Health, what is the day-to-day that you kind of go through as part of your team? And then how does your work support the broader hiring process for providers?
Sure. So really the majority of my time is spent talking on the phone with physicians. So I'm really their first point of contact as they enter the employment process for Essentia Health. And I'm usually that person that has put the post up on a job board. Maybe I have initiated an email campaign through an organization like yours, PracticeLink, that they've received and reached back out. Or perhaps it's another physician that has sent a friend or a colleague my way because they know about our organization and refer them over to me, which is actually the number one way we find candidates, believe it or not, in the 15 years I've been here. But so I'm their first point of contact. And so just really spending time with them and getting a chance to know them, what's important, making sure to take the time and share what it is that our values are, what our leadership is, what kind of practice we have here at Essentia. And from there, connecting them with a physician leader within our organization to have that additional phone call to really see if their skill set and everything about them aligns well with our organization as well, with regards to culture and our values, etc. So that's who I am. And from there, really just all the kind of organizational things that go on in the background, like reference checking, etc. I talked about posting of the job board, so meeting with departments and learning what their needs are and putting together that information so that we can present that out on the various job boards that we use. So that is my role. But of course, there are many steps along the way. So I'm just one small piece of our team.
I know that you work remote. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I think we both worked remote for a decent amount of time. So thinking back as you go through your career and related to being remote, I think your full team is remote. What have you done maybe personally or within your teams that really still drives that teamwork and collaboration to make, like, all those pieces you said have to come together to have a successful recruitment and have the candidate ultimately start and hopefully stay long term? So anything within that when you think back, what have you learned in how those interactions kind of have to happen?
Yeah, I think that it all starts with listening. It doesn't matter whether it's on the phone with a physician or whether it's on a meeting like ours is today virtually with your various members of your team, to just listen to what their needs are, listen to what information that they need, and just being sure to communicate that back and be really timely. But at the same time, being yourself and being joyful. Joy is one of our organization's values, and that's important to us. So as much as we're tied to the mission to make a healthy difference in people's lives here at Essentia, we can do that by really focusing on our teamwork, another value, and joy. And of course, you develop those relationships by actively listening and then following up. But also, how can you do that with a more joyful and open, honest communication style?
Right. So what's one part of your job that gives you the most joy?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It's when I see the physician in their practice, especially one that's been there for a number of years. It's just so rewarding. Last year, my father-in-law needed a heart valve replacement. And of course, it was one of the physicians we had signed like 3 years early out of training that was his physician. And that's just incredible, really, honestly. And of course, over a career of 15 years, there's just lots of interactions like that. And even just seeing the physician in the community and making a home, and you can tell that they're happy. They found a place. And so all I did was connect them with the right opportunity. And it sounds so simple, but obviously it made a huge impact, and not just on their lives, but on my own family and my own friends, because I live here in the Essentia Health community.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much, still a majority dynamic that recruiters live in the communities they serve. I know in my prior roles, I had recruiters that weren't in those communities, but they took the time to go visit, and really, they could speak to it like they lived there. But when you get to witness that of the care that's being provided, that's an outcome of the work that you did. You weren't able to do that valve surgery or, do any of those things, but that connection brought that person to the community that saved lives. And I think that's why we all do this. You mentioned the interview I did with Chris, which was fantastic. You're known for being a detailed-oriented and process-focused person. And I'm sure you have a lot on your plate. If you're doing the sourcing and the interviewing and those steps that you mentioned, that's a lot. What strategies or systems do you rely on to stay organized and kind of keep everything running smoothly, keep that communication going with your teams?
Yeah, I think that everyone has to kind of structure their organization skills to what speaks to them. And I'm super visual. So just simple things like in my own inbox for every candidate that I ever speak with or communicate, whether that be email or text or phone call, I have a candidate file for them. And that goes back as long as I've been here. And so I can make sure that I'm staying timely with my communication, that I didn't drop the ball, that I made sure to follow up on things. So just having those little action items that are triggers to help you remember to go back through, and then taking the time to pause in your workday to really think about, okay, where can I double check that all of this happened beginning to end? And of course, that's always evolving and changing depending on, the newest database that you're using or all the tools that we have to help us, right? But staying on top of the new knowledge as it comes in and using that to your advantage.
I have to ask, so since your team works remote, you're multi-state, are you using a common ATS, or how do you kind of communicate even some of that data flow?
So right now we're in Workday. I anticipate that that's where we will stay. It's such a really great tool, at least from an HR function for sure, since we have implemented that now, and it's been so many years ago. And it just continues to evolve. There are different layers coming out, different collaborations and mergers happening within Workday as well to kind of expand what they can do from the ATS tracking standpoint. That's what we use. I can't say that it's serving all of our needs, honestly. And so I would say even within the last 6 months, I think I've been trained on 3 different new software applications with regards to whether it's tied to Workday or it's a completely separate software package to do things like manage our career fairs and messaging out to those candidates and follow up and tracking expenses. So we're always looking for that next tool that's going to help us cross the finish line beginning to end with a candidate. And I don't know that we have found a perfect iteration, but we're doing a good job. So making it all come together and work.
I think that's interesting. You said, the different layers of all of the technology. I don't even know that we built technology questions into today's session because I really wanted to talk about some other things. But I think that that's something that people don't realize either, maybe if they're new coming into these roles, or if you've been here for a while, you understand you've got tabs and windows and whatever it is open throughout your day. It's a lot to keep yourself organized in that way that you're updating your ATS, you're communicating with your candidates or a site visit or they start next week kind of a thing. It is a lot to keep track of. Is there any advice you would give to others? How do you just keep that coordination and kind of all the balls in the air, honestly, with that? And again, probably even more so as you work across different states where your team is remote, which I know can be done. I believe in that. I think it just takes the right people and the right tools.
The advice that I would give to others with regards to staying on top of the technology is just to do it. There is no other way but through it, right? So we know that that's just going to continue to evolve and change. And as my role has in this 15 years, and so many times we can tell ourselves that, oh, I'm really happy with exactly how things are in this moment because they feel safe and they feel secure and I know what's going on. But really, it's so important for us to just continue to evolve and embrace what tools come our way with technology or you fill in the blank, right? And the best way I have found is just embrace it. Know that change is coming. And when it comes, just jump on. And it might take a while to learn a new software application, but I just find that the more I do it, the more I jump in there, the more I start to implement it, then it just becomes part of your daily routine and you become more comfortable, right? There's no kind of shortcut besides just jumping in and taking hold and doing it.
Yeah. And I think anybody that's worked in healthcare long enough knows the saying, change is constant. It is always evolving. I don't think it is an industry for people who want to write it in black and white and put it on a shelf. You've got to always be actively working. It is a business and we have people's lives in our hands.
So I just find myself thinking of how often the technology and the procedural changes that our own healthcare physicians that we're recruiting are going to. There's a reason there are X number of CME dollars that are devoted yearly to these physicians. And so their work is so important. And I do understand the impact of how I do my job and what experience I provide a physician as they enter the organization, how that is going to affect everything, their experience here at Essentia Health. And so I just feel like if the physicians who I have gotten through to the other side and they are now hired and they've been here 10 years and they just continue to evolve and grow and learn, that's the least I could be doing, right? I can't sit across from that patient and provide a healing procedure, device. I can't heal them. And so in what way can I do my role so that it's a great patient experience for our people, like staying on top of everything?
It makes perfect sense to me. And I think that the mission ultimately doesn't matter what your vision, mission, value statements, any healthcare company, it's save lives. It's just the underlying theme of why you open the doors every day. So tell us a little bit about how you use visualization or goal setting to really stay this hyper-focused, motivated, both inside and outside of work.
So I can address it professionally first. I think that our leadership is really great about knowing that even though there are 4 people in the exact same role that I have, and we have various subspecialties, and there's a number of openings, how do we really boil it down to identify the very next hire that we need? What is our priority positions? And then keeping those in front of us so that we can continue to go back and ask ourselves, are we doing enough? Have we posted this in all the right places? Have we tapped our own internal resources, our own physicians to reach out to maybe their own programs and to find that next specialist that we need? And so I think just always having that in front of you and keeping the most important thing is really helpful to keep you on track to being successful and getting your hospital the hires that they need. So I think it's the same in the personal world as well. And of course, you learn these skills early in life. If you're on any sort of sporting team, your coach has talked to you about the importance of visualizing yourself practicing even when you're not out on the field. Just visualizing that shooting of the free throw so that if it's the winning game point and you're on the line, you're ready for that pressure. You've already visualized it, you've already executed it. So I think that growing up, we're all shown how important visualization is for us. But once you actually see it in action, it's a whole nother layer of understanding. And for me, I remember my husband and I were selling the first house that we ever restored. And we were up in the attic and going through those boxes that your parents give you when you move out. That little box with all the strange things in it, and you open it up and you uncover what's inside. And I remember we were talking about your son being a middle schooler. When I was that age, we would have these kind of dream books, basically. They were little books that you'd pass around to all of your friends, and it would ask you your big life questions and kind of asking you to visualize what it is that you want to create your life to look like in 20 years from now. And I remember coming across that book then as an adult, sitting there with my husband, my beautiful family, living in the home that I obviously had in my mind's eye as a goal at some point in that middle school brain, because as I read it, I realized that I was living it. And I think really from that point on, just embracing the fact that visualization, at least for me, has been a really helpful tool, whether it's a vision board at work or a vision board for the next house remodel that my husband and I undertook. You need to kind of know where it is that you want to get to so that you can find that path and stay focused. So that's what I have found, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, that's a great example of that process of visualization and then using that it becomes a reality further down the line. And I will say kudos for surviving doing some remodels with your husband. There are a lot of housing shows out there. It does seem like that can be a stressful time. So
Yeah, my husband and I have had 3 house restorations in 30 years. So it seems like we like to do one every 10 years just for fun.
Yeah, that's interesting way to describe it, for fun, but maybe you need a break in between there. You take one on and then you need a break.
Did you know PracticeLink, the nation's most trusted physician recruitment resource, now offers PracticeLink Pro Marketing? PracticeLink Pro Marketing is a brand new powerful recruitment sourcing solution built just for healthcare organizations. With custom strategies, targeted reach, and data-driven results, PracticeLink Pro Marketing helps you attract top-tier candidates and fill hard-to-reach roles faster. Ready to elevate your recruitment game? Visit PracticeLink.com and schedule your free consultation today.
Let's talk a little bit about how you balance your, sounds like, very full work days and taking care of you so that you can bring your best self to work, knowing recruitment is so fast-paced. How do you maintain that, the work-life balance, and ensure that you're recharging outside of work?
Well, I think that for someone like myself, that work is at my home, it can be very easy for it all to just be kind of one synergistic existence, really. It's nothing for me to have a physician phone screen right after dinner, or maybe I have to pause dinner and take that call, or after hours, early mornings. And you need to make that happen. You want to be available when the physician is available. And so as important as it is for me to get that on my calendar, I make it just as important to do the things in my day that are going to keep me balanced. And so I make sure that I schedule time to move my body, whether that means going for a walk or whatever that movement might consist of. And really setting yourself up for success by simple things like getting enough sleep, eating the right food, all the things that we know, according to the organization that I work for, healthcare, right, that we need to do to have a nice, healthy, balanced life. And so being sure, though, I think the difference is being sure that you actually put it on your calendar. Like, I look ahead and think, okay, these are where my phone screens, these are these meetings. So that means I'm in a place, this holds space here for whatever activity, whether it's just some quiet time to just be in nature and enjoying the fresh air and focusing on your breath and clearing your mind, or whether it's an activity like a nice bike ride or walk in nature. So yeah, that's what I do, and I find it to be super helpful.
And I imagine where you live, your outdoor walking is limited based on the season. So then you have to find some other activities. I had somebody that I worked with, and she would put a 15-minute stretch on her calendar a couple times a day. Like, obviously very different than smoke breaks that people used to take at work. But people did find time to go do their smoke break. You have to make the time to stop. I know, today I looked at my calendar and jam-packed. Thank goodness I did have some things fall off, which I'm always okay with. But there are those days where you look up, it's 2:00, you haven't eaten lunch. There's other things you haven't done in the day. And we find that if it's on our calendar or in our task, like, those things get done. And so you're right, the work stuff and the life stuff, have to come together in that way.
I would say, and also just taking the time to reflect on your day is so important too. I know I had one of those days where I had started the morning the right way, a little reading, a little journaling, just kind of knew what the day was going to look like. And then it blows up. That happens in real life all the time. And, when you're in the middle of it, just continuing to breathe and know that you're going to be on the other side of it. But then once you're on the other side of it, instead of just walking away, just stopping to pause and ask, what are some of the things I could have done a little bit differently that would have made me feel a little more grounded and a little bit better able to handle whatever the stress was. And so I know I spent some time thinking about it, and I know personally I even just identified that one of the meetings that I had taken that had been particularly stressful would have just been so much better if I had been on a walk at the same time. And I've been a really good supervisor and managers here at Essentia Health. And so they are really great about just encouraging us to do that and say, hey, you know what, today I'm not going to turn on my camera during this team meeting. I'm going to be walking at the same time just because this is the only opportunity, or maybe I just know that I need to clear my mind a little bit. So that's been super helpful.
It's funny you mentioned that. I actually gave that advice to a colleague today, because there are those moments, and I'm an auditory learner, so don't give me something to read because I will miss the instructions. But if it's spoken to me, that's how my brain works. I don't know if it's from years of being an executive assistant and listening in board meetings and then taking minutes. That's how I'm trained. And I agree, when you can first give people the flexibility to be on camera or off camera, like that, absolutely. There are just days when it's just not working for you and you need just that little bit of space. But then also being intentional to empower people to carve out that time. So great work by the leaderships in your organization, and definitely the culture that they have created for that. I know that you're passionate about yoga and mindfulness. Obviously, a lot of what we talked about is mindfulness. How did that journey start? And then how has it influenced your mindset at work?
I think that I've always recognized the importance of movement. We all get to that point. I think if you are somebody who enjoys exercise or whatever that is, you love how that feels afterwards and how quiet your brain becomes after a stressful day if you can just get on a bike and ride. And so some of the classes that I started to just gravitate to was once a week I would go to a yoga class on a Friday. It was almost like my noon Friday treat. I would go to this yoga class, and I was really surprised at how much internal chatter would leave my head at the end of that class. Just focusing on that breath and that movement, and then being guided to clear the chatter, to clear all of that out of your mind and be given tools to actively make that work. So I loved how that felt. And the only other time I would feel like that is maybe after like a deep tissue massage is probably the only other time I can tell you that I felt like there was quiet space in my mind. And once you've had that, then you have such a wonderful, fresh perspective on especially the challenging things in your life. The joyful things are that much more joyful, right? And your gratitude just continues to grow. But it's the stressful things that if you can kind of focus on your breath and quiet your mind, you're just so much better apt to be able to come to a solution and get to the other side, because that is what life is. We are here as physician recruiters because there is a need, there is a void, a problem, and our role is to fill that. And that's really how life works. There's a problem, it comes to you, and then how do you get to the other side of that? And to me, just like I said before with technology, you just kind of have to get through it. But can you do that with grace? Can you breathe a little bit slower? Can you bring a little bit more joy to it? And that's not easy. There's always going to be those stressful situations or those really urgent, serious concerns that have to be addressed. But if you can quiet the mind and sit at the center of that storm to find that kind of calm moment, I just find that you're able to navigate things so much better. So that is what has happened with my yoga practice. The more I make sure to incorporate it into, if I can, my everyday life, adding that movement, even if it's not a full hour class, even if it's just 20 minutes in the morning, just finding some quiet space and turning the lights down and just breathing and moving and feeling calm and getting your head to that nice, peaceful starting place, I find the day just goes so much better.
Yeah. Have you heard the term Sunday scaries?
Ooh, I'm sure I know what it refers to, but no, I've never heard someone call it that.
Yeah. I don't know who coined the phrase, but there's definitely leaders that I follow that speak about that feeling that on Sunday afternoon, you're like going through all those things that are going to be happening in your week, professionally and at home, and it just starts to stack up, and that anxiety that you get. I think for me personally, working from home takes a tremendous amount of that stress away. You're not worried about what time do we need to leave the house and to school and then to work and then back. You're not worried about some of that. You have a little bit more flexibility. And you don't always have to get super fancy dressed up. So that's another stressor, at least for women, that my team has seen me many times, no makeup, wet hair. That doesn't impede my work and my quality of work. We can be on a call and I don't need to do that. It's just a time saver for most folks in their day. But yeah, the Sunday scaries, I look back on my career and absolutely identify with that. I don't know if you do or not, but I did.
I really just love what I do, that I don't get the Sunday scaries, but I have gotten them in the past. And I think about where I was working and what I was doing at that time. So I always just find the more connected you are to really that mission statement of the organization that you're working for, and the more aligned you are with what it is that you do, and especially if you feel like if you're in a role that is utilizing the skill sets that come more naturally to you, then you just start to be in the flow of life. And so for me, that work and then that personal is all kind of all together, because you're right. I'm working from my home here. I'm in charge of the things that are surrounding me. I can create a peaceful space that I'm surrounded by all the things that bring me warmth and joy. And when we talk about staying focused, again, having my little board of the items that I need to focus for the day. And so I like routine. I find that I thrive better in routine. And so, yeah, my work days, I also know are also going to be the days that I'm for sure going to get my yoga practice in. I'm for sure going to eat that healthy meal, because I'm here at my home office. Obviously, when you're on the road, that looks a lot different. And as much joy as my weekends and all the personal fun that I have with family and friends and travel and all those things, I would say that my work day brings just as much joy, honestly, my day-to-day. So I'm fortunate in that way.
Yeah, that is an awesome feeling. I think for a long time, I really resist the term work-life balance because we get one life. How do you balance the two things? And so that term was, really popular pre-COVID. I feel like after COVID, a lot of people working from home, and that created some serious balance in their life. They weren't wasting 2 hours commuting to an office and those types of things. So everything that you said is really important. I hope that as people listen to this episode, because I said it before, but recruitment is so fast-paced, and you feel the pressure of not being able to have a candidate or not having enough candidates or the right candidate. It's not always financial. It's not the CFO saying it. It's the patients in your community, and you're without that service line. And so a lot of pressure. It's a very hard industry to be in and to recruit in and be successful to bring people to the communities that we're in. Do you have a book or two that may have influenced you in your career?
The one that really inspired me is from so long ago now that people might even giggle about it, but it's Zig Ziglar. I feel like when I came across him, which would have been during my education before going out into my career, it was really helped me restructure that more immature mind of expectations and life happening to you and feeling a little bit like a victim in some ways, and how much of your world you can improve by just having a positive attitude, to finding your joy, and how contagious that is, and how it just makes everything a better team. So that would be the one that probably had the most impact. I think the most recent one that I read that I wish I would have found at a younger stage in my life was Let Them.
Oh, sure. Mel Robbins.
But I just find that would have been a really great one for me to read as somebody who tends to be a little sensitive, a little bit of an empath, maybe taking on some energy that I didn't own, and instead just allowing people to be who they are and literally let them find their path, and that's okay if it's different than yours. So that would be the more recent one for me.
Yeah, really admire her work and podcast, and that's a lesson I'd love to figure out how to teach my children. My kids being teenagers, it's just very pivotal where you wish you could say, just let them. I don't know if it's the you do you thing. I don't know.
Yes, it is. It's taking that personal responsibility and allowing people to make their own decisions and have their own path, and for you not to be so reactive to it, for you to just be more mindful and watch it happen and just don't let that affect you, just to let them.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, this has been terrific. Liz, on behalf of PracticeLink, I really just want to thank you for joining me today, sharing your thoughtful insights and experiences, from the importance of collaboration and process to the value of mindfulness and innovation. Liz, you really remind us that supporting a recruitment team, either the leader or as one of the team, it's not just about efficiency. It's about connection, intention, and care. So really appreciate that. For our listeners, be sure to explore the PracticeLink Resource Center, which supports both physicians and recruiters. I'd love to hear from you. You can share your thoughts or feedbacks from today's episode and visit practicelink.com or email us directly at plmedia@practicelink.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Workforce Wisdom on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen, so you never miss a conversation that inspires, informs, and helps shape the future of healthcare recruitment. I'm Christy Bray, and this has been Workforce Wisdom. Thanks for listening.